How can you get the most out of your dry practice that'll actually apply to your live fire practice?
POM pepper spray has recently reformulated for even more effect when you bless the deserving with the hot sauce. POM is what I use between a harsh word and a gun and encourage everyone to do likewise.
Hey guys, Brian Hill with The Complete Combatant coming to you on Suckless Saturday. You guys practice, which is unusual. We don't find that a lot in our communities, our martial communities, especially in shooting. And so you need to get the most out of it you can. There's often the idea that if we just do more of it, we'll get better quicker, which is not necessarily true. And oftentimes what we're doing doesn't actually help us in live practice. So I'm going to talk to you about one of the things you can do today in dry practice. It'll really help you tremendously, and you'll see it feed into your live practice. The disparity between dry practice and live practice should never be greater than 20%. You know, if you can run a El Presidente in dry practice in 4 seconds and it's 6.5 when you get on the range, something's wrong. You've got to really improve that. They are not working in alignment. They're not facilitating your progress. And one of the big things I see is people are too generous in their shot calling or too strict in their shot calling. And we got to find the middle ground of that. Thing that can help you a lot is have targets. Okay. I know a lot of you have a limited area that you can work in. You know, I'm looking at about 12 feet that I'm working in my studio here. So what I have is different sized targets. All right. They're scaled down to facilitate a different distance. What I would see at 10 yards and what I might see at 20 yards. All right. And what I might see at 25 yards. Okay. And that gives me a good chance to really work on calling my shots as they come into it. All right. One of the great things about the USPSA target is it does have a head and it has shoulders. So it allows me to align in the center of the target, even though I can't see the perforations or the scoring zone, which is good because then I'm using geometric alignment instead of trying to put it inside of something. People that are accuracy first are going to overconfirm this. They're going to try to put it in the center of the center, where basically we're just trying to hit the target effectively. Anywhere inside that alpha would be good enough. In fact, I'll even accept a near Charlie in my practice as long as it's close. All right. But anything outside of that has to be called also. And that's where speed shooters often get in trouble. They say everything's good, but then when they get to the range, they find out that something's completely different. Now, there's a saying in training, eyes drive the gun. And I do take umbrage at that statement because I think it's incomplete. If you look someplace quickly and your hand moves at the same speed, you're going to go past the target. All right. We don't do that in athletics. We don't do that in driving. Wherever your eyes go, that's where you're going to end up. I get that. But we've got to think about, we've generated a lot of movement, a lot of speed coming to the target. Maybe it's more important how we're going to slow the gun down to get an effective hit. So imagine we're doing a transition between two targets. Okay. So as I leave this target and I move to this target and I look quickly and I drive the gun, as you can see, my finger went past it. I see this a lot in practice when we're engaging multiple targets or in transitions, even on the same target where people drive past it from right to left pretty easily. Same thing when they drive up. We don't see it in downward driving because you have to fight the recoil, and it tends to give you a braking mechanism allowing you to slow the gun down. What I want you guys to start thinking about is not only are where you're going to look, your eyes should come to the target, but where are you going to start slowing the gun down? So if I wanted, this is a pretty large target. It's generous enough. So I don't have to slow the gun down back here, but I do need to start bleeding off speed. And right about here, I need to prep the trigger. And as I enter the inside of that A zones, I want to fire and see my sights lift right there. All right. And that lets me do it. It's going to be very easy with a large target like this because it'll tolerate a bit more error. But what happens when we go to the medium-sized target? Right? Now we've got a medium target. So as I come in and I bring the gun, if I go too quick, it's really hard to stop in the middle. So what I'm going to do is pick some place, maybe like the button on my shirt, even though I wouldn't be in the target, but it's a relative place. That's where I start letting the gun slow down effectively. If you think of these as stop signs that you have to come to a full stop before you enter the intersection box, it's a better way to think about it. So what I'm doing is bleeding it out. And as soon as I get to this edge, then I can shoot, but I can't shoot once I leave this edge. I'm going to let it slow down and I'm going to have a good breaking point. But when we get to something that's this small, where it's very hard to recognize the center of it, it will tolerate very little error from you. Okay. So when I bring the gun in, I have to make sure that it's bled all the energy off and then I get a good centering on. And when I press that trigger, that I see that dot or that front sight and clearly in the center geometrically of this. So I'm going to go across it and up and down and try to find that center. And that allows me to work on my transitions, something that slows down. You can use different shaped targets. I got all these from the Ben Steger Pro Shop. They're really a worthwhile investment. It doesn't cost a whole lot. I don't remember what I paid for them, but I can simply hang these up. And what I do is I try to be very binary in my shot calling process. And I say it's either a hit, and if there's any doubt, then it's a miss. All right, especially when I'm working fast. If I'm working purely accuracy, then I'm doing something different. I'm doing a more deliberate style of shooting, so I'm probably holding the gun still, and I'm practicing that very good trigger press and seeing what the sights do. But in transitions and multiple engagements of distance of targets, these targets are essential. Whatever shape you choose, this bottle's fine because once again, it's got a shoulder and a head, so it allows me to bifurcate it and put it right in the middle of it. All right. And then I can practice different distances. So even though these are next to each other, they appear to be in a different space. It looks like they've moved a lot from each other, but they're next to each other. This looks further away. This looks closer. And when it comes to shooting, the only thing it tells you how fast to shoot is the size of the target. If we can get past worrying about the distance as much and saying that is a small, precise target that requires my full attention, you'll shoot better. All right. I would highly recommend grabbing some of these targets. Heck, you could create your own. You could scale them down and trace them out of cardboard. Whatever you want to do. The Ben Steger Pro Shop just makes it easy. They're laser cut, they're etched, everything's there. And they have a significant amount of different types of targets that you can practice with. So you can find your favorite shape. We're talking more about shape with these targets and color because it matters. I've noticed in classes that some people shoot a black B8 better than a gray B8. And some people see better on a beige background with a dark background. Some people see white. It's hard to tell because perception is a truly individual state. Well, there's no way to prove that you see exactly the same way I do, but what I see is the contrast in class all the time. All right. So your challenge this week is to make some real different size targets. There's nothing new and inventive in this, and work on the transitions of from near to far. You can put them next to each other. So let me show you what I'm talking about with that. Okay. So maybe I want to do what we call a throttle. Here, let me get one of the bigger ones too. Okay. So I want to do some sort of changing gears or throttle response. You know, if I line these up in a row like this, so I can see them next to each other, what it looks like is in a descending pattern behind me, and it's moving away from me. So this, even though they're next to each other, they're in the same spot, but it appears smaller to the eye. Okay. And also I can make a wider transition so I can practice my stopping. That would be going from maybe a 10-yard to a 20-yard target. And then I can also block a target out, put a non-thread in front of it. Okay. I probably would do the same size or something closer in size like this. And then what I can do is decide how much of that target is good enough for me to shoot and get the answer I want. I think we'll talk about that in another video of deciding how much target is enough and at what speed you can shoot it. But this is a great way to train. It keeps the eye in a smooth pursuit mechanism where it's watching, it's tracking. The dot is always going to be easier in dry practice to call. So those of you that are shooting iron sights, you need to be more strict upon your alignment because you have 3 alignments. But don't get so strict that you stop the gun and try to hold it completely still because the nature of the nervous system won't let you do that. It's going to be in motion. And if you look at if you have a Mantis, if you look at your tracking, it never stays still. So we never have a perfect sight picture that can be held like a bench rest. It's just simply not practical for handgun shooting. What you should see from this, practice this way, practice with the different distances and long transitions. And when you go and shoot a more complex drill, your live practice scores and your dry practice scores will be much closer. I accept about 10% difference in mine. If I see anything bigger than that, I'm really going to work on it. If you get to 20%, you're way out of bounds. Your practice is ineffective at that time and it has to be modified. Don't stop practicing, just modify what you're doing and you're going to get better. So work on your transitions, check your dry practice to live practice. People ask me what's a good ratio. In the real world, the ratio may be as much as 1 to 10. 1 live practice to 10 dry practices. What I would say is perfect for most people is a 1 to 5. If we do 5 dry practices, we should confirm it in 1. So it means once a week we should go to the range and the other practices are done dry. Or if you're practicing every other day, you go to the range every 2 weeks and confirm what you're doing. But make sure whatever you're drilling, you do live at the range and that you actually measure it with a timer and make it consistent and see if it bleeds over. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that. I hope your training is really working for you. I look forward to your answers, your results, and see how this helps you. I'm Brian Hill with The Complete Combatant, and this is Suck Less Saturday with Active Self-Protection Extra. The most important thing we can do in training is measure, refine, and perform.